Welcome back. We are here with Mark Wolynn. I hope your mind is being blown as ours was. I mean, when I read the book, I was just so excited. And so many of these things just make sense with a lot of my patients. So when I was a young psychiatrist, I learned a technique called hypnoanalysis, where you'd basically go to the symptom a person was having, what are they thinking and feeling, and then take them back under a trance to the first time they had those thoughts or feelings. And then reading Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, well, he would flip them into other lives. And I thought that was fascinating. But it may not be like a past life regression, but it could be a past family tree.
And generation,
regression. So before we get, Mark, into more tips, how can people learn more about your work? So they can obviously get the book. It didn't start with you, how inherited family trauma shapes who we are and how to end the cycle. Brilliant. How else can they learn about your work?
The book's everywhere, bookstores. It's in 20 languages.
Audible, you said?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. And to connect with me directly, I teach trainings for clinicians. MarkWolynn.com, WOLYNN.com. Training in Copenhagen, one in San Francisco, and one in Sydney, Australia. So always 3 trainings a year.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. And then do you have a center in San Francisco?
Yeah, I have. I'm located here in Marin, actually. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So let's talk about more tips people can do if they're thinking, and one of them, I think they should do what I did, is I went and talked to my mom and dad. And I'm like, I want to know more about your mom and dad and were there any traumas in the family?
Yeah. So, nothing beats that. We've got to have the story of what happened. If we can get it, is amazing. So a lot of people who read the book, then if the parents are alive, they can ask the parents. Sometimes they have to ask an aunt or an uncle or an older sibling or a cousin because everybody's gone. But some of us are adopted, and some of us, our parents are gone. We have no one to ask. It's important to know that this information, even if it's not known, still lives in our trauma language. It's in our fears. It's in our symptoms. It's in our self-sabotaging behaviors or self-destructive behaviors. It's in the symptoms of an illness. As I talked about earlier, it's in an anxiety, a symptom, a depression, something that appears after a difficult event. It's in our relationship struggles. It's in the repeated ways we deal with money and success. So even if we don't know exactly what happens, doesn't matter. We've got a sense of what might have happened because it's showing up in one of those areas. So, what I ask people to do if they can is to, what you did, Daniel, shake the family tree, see what falls out.
I love that analogy. That's a beautiful image.
What family secrets, were never talked about, that were hidden? What stories didn't get told?
Yeah.
What traumas never healed all the way? That's the biggie. What traumas never healed all the way? And because of the trauma, people collapsed, people shrunk, people turned away. Your grandfather stayed angry at his sister. Was that who you said? Yeah. So these types of experiences can block the healing of the trauma. In other words, anger is easier than grief. So we go to anger.
For sure.
Secondly, talk about the traumas in your family. Try to work through them we need to try to work through them ourselves. That's essential, so they're not passed down into future generations. In one of the mice studies, they found that as they put the traumatized mice in positive, low-stress environments, it actually changed the DNA. It inhibited the enzyme that causes DNA methylation or histone modifications, which are some of the mechanisms of transfer.
Wow.
So talk about these traumas, because the more we talk about them with our kids, the more they're able to connect, have relief. The more they're able to get an answer to have a coat hook for the coat that they're wearing, in a sense.
Yeah, that's so true.
To hang the coat.
That's so wild, because when I was growing up, my grandmother, she used to, because of what happened to her, and I never understood this. Well, two things happened. My uncle was murdered in a drug deal, and then she also had gone through, the war and all of that stuff, her war-torn country. She'd sit in her room. She became a hoarder, and so she would keep old used tinfoil. She was so afraid of a war breaking out. Like, she became this hoarder. She wouldn't throw anything away. Plastic utensils, nothing. And she also would sit in her room and cry. She would turn the news on and just cry and bawl and wail all day, because she would just think about what happened to her. Well, I never understood that. And so all I knew was like, what is happening? Like, this is so weird. Like, what is this crazy behavior? I knew there was something wrong. I just could never figure out what it was. And when I was writing my book and I actually went back and asked my mom and my uncles, I'm like, something's got to give here. And around the same time, my grandfather was also hit by a train and became a quadriplegic. So there were a lot of things in her life. And when I began to put it through that lens, it was like, oh, well, geez, no wonder she sat in her room and cried. She had a language barrier, so she couldn't express herself. And so she didn't speak English very well. And so all of a sudden there's this sort of a warm feeling that came to me, and this empathic feeling, like, oh, I feel bad for her, rather than that was just such a weird way to grow up with this woman in the corner crying all the time,
Well, judgment is so easy.
It just changed everything.
Understanding why. I'm in a new docuseries with Justin Bieber. Justin's been one of my patients for a long time. And when I read his mother's book. So Patty wrote an autobiography. It was just the best psychiatric history. But when you see the traumas that she went through or his dad went through and how he relived some of those, and it may not be his genes, but rather his epigenes, that, because people think, oh, well, I inherited this, so I'm going to have schizophrenia or I'm going to be bipolar. And it's not so. It's really what happens to us that turns on or quiets those genes that make us vulnerable. But knowing that is just so important.
And easier not to judge, I think, when we understand.
Well, my goodness, we are out of time.
So great.
So, Mark, I hope we become friends. I'm so excited and just so grateful that you wrote It Didn't Start With You, which you can get on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. You can also get the audiobook of it, which has just got a ton of positive reviews. You can go to Mark Wolynn, WOLYNN.com, and learn about workshops and his appearances and courses that he has done. And I'm just grateful for the work you do.
Such good information. It's just so important. Such great
Thank
insight.
you. I'm so happy to meet you both and to be with you here on the show, and let's become friends.
Yes. If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com, or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.